God, what good time do we all have? This is a big collective of human beings. Hi, how you guys doing today? Good? It's day 1 of con, it's noon, the day's technically half over, don't think about it, we're all happy here. So hi, welcome to Getting Into Character with me, a topic that gets me so riled up. So if I get really, really passionate up here, just don't worry about it, it's fine. I can contain myself when I feel like it. Cool, I know how to introduce panels yet. Yeah, I'm good at this. I've been doing this for how many years? It's whatever. It's fine. I'm gonna be holding on to this a lot because I have like an outline of stuff for myself to talk about because there's like a lot of points that I wanna hit. I have 60 minutes to do it. We're gonna see what happens because I could go on 50 million tangents on this topic and I'm gonna try not to. But I will say, if there's any like questions or thoughts, tangents of your own mind's creation that you want to bring up, put on the table, just pop your hand in the air and I will totally stop what I'm doing and call on you and we'll talk about it. Hi. Do you have your handkerchief? You bet I do. This is a panel about getting into character. You think I would forget something so integral to my personality? You're funny. Yeah, so we're going to talk about this. So I'm going to preface this. Actually, there's like probably 5 prefaces I could give to this. First one, this is a family-friendly con. We're all going to be family-friendly. I have people like this wonderful human in the back that's going to be like really nice until they have a reason not to be. So if anybody has too much fun, that kind, door's over there. And if they don't drop kick you out, I will. Second preface, getting into character is a really, really general, broad, and flexible topic, and there is no one right way to do it. But since you came here and asked me, we're going to be talking about sort of the things that I do, the things that I think about when I'm doing character study and figuring out how to really get into the head of somebody that I'm trying to pretend to be. But you can take this as far as you want to. I'm going to be giving a lot of tips and advice, and you can pick and choose which ones make sense to you. And if there's some that you don't necessarily agree with or some that just seem like way too over the top, which is probably going to be most of them, you don't have to do them. Totally don't. This is not a necessity. Because cosplay is about having fun and doing what you love the way that you want to do it. Everybody cosplays for a different reason. People that like to do cosplay contests may do it for the sake of the creative process, for the craftsmanship, to showcase what they can do. Other people like to do it to fit into a social group. Other people like to do it for a lot of reasons, a collective of all the above of some others that I'm just not going to mention because I would be here for 5 million hours. Or they like to do it for like the acting part of it, which is a huge part of what makes it fun for me. So I like to go the whole 50 million thousand miles and go really over the top and be really extra because that's me as a person. So, none of this is a necessity, but if you're here, it probably means that you're kind of interested, so you might want to do maybe some of these. It's totally up to you, it's all subjective. So, a good way to start this is to say that acting experience is not required. You don't... Excuse me, I am not a reptile. He's a cool, what's his name? Okay. Acting experience is not required. You don't have to be off of Broadway. You don't have to have taken a single acting class to be able to be in character. Everybody has their own strong suits, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, but that doesn't mean you can't have fun with it. Yes, I've had acting classes, I've been in plays, but I was doing in-character stuff way before I ever bothered with any of that. I didn't do that until community college. Yes, I'm old, hi. So you don't have to be an expert because, ooh, guess what? There's no such thing as an expert really of anything that's this broad of a topic because everybody has their own opinion about it. So that's not important, really. It can help with certain things if you like method to your madness, but you don't have to have it. And so, one thing that a lot of people have the question about is, if you're getting into a character, say, from a series that has both a manga and an anime, sometimes they're not the same thing. They can be actually really, really different, and you have to ask yourself which one is the right one. Right one, in quotation marks, because is there a right one? They're both technically canon, so which one do you follow? If the manga says that this character has had this happen to them, but then in the other something else happens because they changed the timeline, what do? That's when it's kind of up to you. You can make your own discretionary choices with a lot of these things because there's no right or wrong way to do it. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about is very accuracy based, and so I will probably mention at a few points and try to slightly discourage headcanons because there is a time and place for them, and we will talk about that, and also to avoid bias, because those are different things. Because your headcanon, that's a different tangent. This is gonna be really hard to keep track of because again, I'm gonna wanna go on 50,000 tangents, it's fine. But if the sources that you're going off of, like the anime and the manga, are very different. Hi, yes?
I have a question. I've heard some anime fans say when you're picking a character, it's not cosplay if it's not an anime or a manga, and some say, well, if it's a popular nerdy TV show, then you can call it cosplay. Is that, before we get into being a character?
Good point. So take something that's very popular right now, Voltron. Voltron Legendary Defender. That's not an anime. People call it an anime. It's technically not, because it's not from Japan. You can still cosplay from Voltron. It's still the same process. You can still make a costume, be in character, do a fan panel, compete in a cosplay contest. It's still cosplay. It's not an anime, but you can still absolutely cosplay from it. And Avatar: The Last Airbender, that show, Atla, Legend of Korra, not animes, not at all. People cosplay from it all the time. So, for the sake of this, I may say anime versus manga, but also just remember in your head that I also mean cartoon versus comic, because I'm talking about the entire genre of cosplay, and there is no limit to that. Because people cosplay from video games, which are live action from their own universes that aren't technically from Japan, maybe they're from a lot of different places. So there's no limits to that, but that was a good point. Yes, and we're not putting things in a box here. It's all for the sake of the craft and the creation process and the fun of it. Always the fun of it. So you have to kind of make up your own mind which one you think is more credible, and I put that in quotation marks because it's always going to be up to your own opinion to a certain degree. Take a series that I've cosplayed a lot before in the past is Soul Eater. Who in here knows that one? Most people, okay. The manga and the anime are very different. Get past volume 10 of the manga and the storylines go like this. They don't even end up in the same ending. They don't converge. They just go and do their own thing. Yes.
Same thing.
Exactly. Woo, Tokyo Ghoul. I get so fired up about that. Context. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Tokyo Ghoul definitely did that. I won't get into like my personal bias about that because that's my own opinion that really isn't important to this. But that's why, sort of as an example of that, I had to make a choice. Because I've done panels as Tsukiyama and I've been in character for him for certain occasions, and so I felt like I needed to know him to a certain degree. And that's me with everything. If I'm going to cosplay something, I like to know that person like the back of my hand, or at least feel like I do. So for someone like Tsukiyama, manga Tsukiyama versus anime Tsukiyama, so different. Who in here is actually, who knows what Tokyo Ghoul is? Okay, who's read the manga in addition to watching the anime? See? Considerably fewer, and that's okay. You can pick and choose which one you want to do. But just know, they're extremely different. Very different. And a lot of people say, oh, well, the second season of Tokyo Ghoul makes like no sense because they changed a lot of things. Kaneki did like the exact opposite of this and that, and then went completely other direction. You have to choose which sort of storyline you want to follow, because at least for getting into character, this topic for me, I often put into the context of hosting in-character fan panels because that's a lot of what I do at cons. And so you get asked questions by people and you have to know an answer. Sometimes there's a correct answer if you're going off of something canon that has actually happened already, but a lot of the times they're gonna wanna throw a spin on it and they're gonna wanna try to put you on the spot and ask you something that hasn't happened, something hypothetical. And you have to be able to sell that answer to that person and tell them something that is believable, that makes sense with that character. Because if you tell them something that makes no sense whatsoever, or worse, something that contradicts what's canon already, and that person knows the series better than you do, that's when things just kind of get awkward. Nobody likes that. Yes?
You ever been caught trying to sell a line? It was just too
Once.
bad?
I dodged it really well, though, I will say. It was actually in a Tokyo Ghoul panel, which was really funny. And in retrospect, I actually understood what the person was asking, but in that moment, I was so confused.
Oh, no.
So flippin' confused. I was on a panel. It was not a panel that I was actually the main leader or the host of, which is why I was already feeling like really weird. I'm a bit of a control freak about panels. I will admit this. I'm a control freak about panels. I micromanage everything. But, so I was on a panel with several other members of the Tokyo Ghoul cast, and someone asked, and this is like right at the beginning of the series, so this isn't really a spoiler, but they were like, they were asking a question to Toka, who was being cosplayed by my current roommate actually, and they asked something about how they were subtly hinting that Toka was to blame for the construction beam falling on Rize's head and killing her. And like, we all just kind of like had this moment of, does anybody actually know what she's talking about? We all just had such a freeze that moment, and we were all just like, about that, funny story. Help me. Because my roommate had basically crash coursed the Wikipedia page the night before the panel. Because like she had watched Tokyo Ghoul, but it was a while ago, and we were worried that somebody was going to ask us something from the manga, which was not something that she had read. And of course she looks at me because I've read and watched both, so I'm supposed to have all the answers, obviously. And at the time, I did not have an answer. And so I decided, instead of actually choosing to flounder with the question and actually find the right answer, I let myself hide inside of my own character because Tsukiyama wasn't there. He doesn't actually know what happened. Not for sure. So I played dumb. And it was great. Everyone believed it. And everyone was safe. And we were all just as confused. So yeah, you just kind of, sometimes you will get stumped, but if you do your character study right, sometimes you can actually call someone and be like, oh, see, that's not actually right. This is what's right. I know my stuff. Yes?
I have a question that luckily doesn't involve spoilers. All I want to know is, how do you feel about the most recent chapter?
Haven't read it. I've actually, I sort of went on hiatus from reading the Tokyo Ghoul manga for a while because I was afraid it was going to hurt my heart.
It will.
That's what I figured. I know, I'm on Tumblr once in a while. I see things, I know sort of what the big to-do is that happens. I don't speak of it. Especially considering who I am. I don't speak of it. Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay, going back to choosing the path you want to take for anime versus manga or cartoon versus comic.
Right.
How do you accurately show through your character which path you are taking just differences between whether you are portraying the character from the anime or portraying the character from the manga?
Okay, that's a really good question. A lot of really subtle things can go into doing something like that. And that's where observing the really subtle differences comes into play. A lot of times a character will wear a certain outfit in only one version, either the motion picture version or the on paper version. And oftentimes just by choosing that outfit, you can tell everybody in the room what side you're on. Oftentimes series will change personalities a lot between things. That can help too. Tsukiyama, for example, extremely different actually, especially when you take into consideration the manga. At the start of it, he's Tsukiyama. Everybody just, it is what it is. But as the manga progresses, he actually mellows out a lot. And the manga version of Tsukiyama is what I tend to follow more. And so sometimes when people will ask me something, they expect me to go nutso and get really flourishy about everything. But I tone it down a lot. And then people are kind of have this moment of, that's not what I expected. And then they'll sometimes ask follow-up questions and then they'll be like, oh, you're that Tsukiyama. You get it now. It comes into subtleties of aesthetic choices, mannerism choices, and oftentimes just talking to people, especially in context of fan panels. The questions you get asked and the answers you give will often give people a really huge clue into that. It's a difficult thing to do without flat out prefacing a whole panel being like, I'm following this timeline, just so you know. And then that breaks the illusion a little bit, so some people like to try and avoid that, but it's all subjective. You just kind of have to choose. Where was I? So that's sort of manga versus anime, cartoon versus comic. You just kind of have to make that choice based on what you think is truer to the character that you feel like you know, which one you like better, which one you think is more interesting. It's all up to you what the reasons are. You just kind of sometimes have to make a choice. And then sometimes if you want, I have actually done this before where there's aspects of both that I really like, but they just don't quite match a canon answer. You just have to make something up that's believable, and you have to sell it to that person and make them believe it as much as you do. If you believe it enough, and you can make them believe it, it becomes real. In that moment, that becomes your canon. And that's where headcanons can actually become really important, because sometimes you have to go back and refer to them and rely on them for more source material that the original creators just didn't give you. You have to make material for yourself sometimes because they just don't give you enough to go off of. I don't know if that entirely answers your question, but it's you have to kind of make things up sometimes, and that's okay to make things up. That's absolutely an okay thing to do. And practice is really, really important. And it's really cheesy and cliche for me to say this, but practice, practice, practice. A lot of people, I get this question a lot from people on social media, being like, how are you so confident, like up on stage doing panels? How do you embody this character and exude this aura of this character so much? And how do you not get embarrassed and want to like run away and hide in a corner? Because I've been doing this for so long, you don't even know. This goes back to me when I was probably this tall. When I was like less than half this height, I was doing this and I didn't know it. It's called playing pretend, guys. As a kid, you were LARPing before you knew what that stands for. When I figured this out, it was like, oh my God, I've always been a nerd. It's like, it's this epiphany that you just have at one point in your life. And playing pretend is like so important. And that's, because I've done a lot of panels in the past with my sister, Eika Tsukiyomi. And we have been LARPing or playing pretend with these characters that we end up cosplaying and doing panels for years. Actual years before we even knew cosplay was a thing. And that made us really comfortable with what we do. And so deciding to do it for the first time in front of an audience, yes, it was in front of an audience, which was very different, but that was the only obstacle. The rest of it wasn't a thing of nerves of, oh, I don't know if I know this character well enough. I don't know if people are gonna believe what I'm doing. Am I gonna sell this correctly? Are people gonna think that I don't know the series or the character very well? Are people gonna think I suck? That wasn't really ever the issue. It was just, ooh, stage fright. Hello, darkness, my old friend. And I've done dance, acting, other things on stage for years when I was much younger too. So being in front of people and performing in some sense of the word, I'm over it. I still get like a little like, ooh, panel's gonna start. Oh man, I'm not nervous at all. Hi guys. I still get those feelings sometimes, but it's never. I'm not afraid of it because I've done that already. I've gone through that already, and so sometimes to overcome stage fright, which is another thing people talk about, you just kind of have to steadily put yourself outside of your comfort zone, which is where practice comes really in handy. Hi, you have a hand back there.
What do you think about fan art? Like, some people will do fan art and it's like totally different from their character. How do you like, what tips do you have for people who do that? And what do you think about it?
Again, like fan art is a very subjective experience. It's very different for each and every person, and it's part of just being creative. So the part of, it's really in the title. It's fan art, it's not official art. So when it's fan art, you have creative license, and you can sort of take that wherever you're gonna take it. People will do fan art of like crossovers all the time, and those can actually be like legitimately cool. Soul Eater and Attack on Titan crossovers, good stuff. Good stuff. Death the Kid looks good in that gear. That's off topic. I like Kid. He's a good kid. Yeah. But so fan art's fine. Like you don't have to stay canon, and that's part of the beauty of it. You can just sort of do with it what you're gonna do with what's in your mind. You get to just sort of spew it out and put it on paper or on a computer screen, on a tablet, whatever medium you're using, in a charcoal pencil, whatever you're doing. So yeah, fan art has, again, endless possibilities, and you have every right to sort of take liberty with those, because that's sort of what happens when a creator makes something, publishes it, and puts it out there to the world. What can happen, what often happens, and what some people say always happens, is that it becomes less of theirs. It becomes less of their property, and it becomes the world's. And then it becomes up to them to sort of do with it as they please. And a lot of creators get a little about that, because it's like, those are my babies, don't change anything. But most creators are like, yes, breathe and exhale your creativity and do with it what you're going to do with it, because that's really cool. And that's cool. I like creators that are just sort of chill and easygoing and laid back about that, and they just sort of let it happen. But yes, on practice, especially again in context of like doing fan panels and stuff, or even if you're doing maybe a performance in a cosplay contest and you're doing a skit and you want to be in character, you want to practice for that. Just casual acting in a hallway in a con doesn't have to be that different, depending on how seriously you take it and how far you want to take it. You can practice that as much as you want. If you're going to be with friends, or you have friends that know the thing that you're wanting to really invest yourself in, practice with them. Use the tools and the resources around you, which might be people, it might be the mirror in your bedroom or in your bathroom, might be your parents if they're cool with that. It's all up to you. You know your parents better than I do. My parents would think it's really flippin' weird, but that's different. You do what you gotta do, and if you do it enough, it becomes a lot more natural. Practice honestly does help so much, and that's what I was doing for years as a kid, and I just didn't know it. I was practicing acting and making up characters, original characters. You can do that. You can be in character of an original character because you know that character better than anyone. Nobody can tell you you're wrong being a character for an original character, and that's cool. That's really cool. You know how to own that. You can practice that as much as you want by yourself, even if you want. Yes?
What would your advice be for as far as being in character for like in the hall interactions and stuff like that, what if you have a character that's genuinely
A jerk?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's an excellent point too. Cosplay is not an excuse. Remember that. There is a limit and there is a line, especially with some characters that are just straight up not good people, straight up not nice people, straight up inconsiderate, potentially psychotic or murderous people. Don't take that too far, okay? You don't have to bring things to con to make that a really authentic experience, if you know what I mean. You shouldn't do that. There is a line, and that's where you have to use people skills. And I know people skills are not necessarily an easy thing for a lot of people. You have to gauge what someone's comfort zone is. If someone comes to you and is prepared for an in-character interaction, sell it, own it. Have a confrontation, argue, get in someone's face if they're ready for it. if they understand, if you understand what the boundaries are. Don't like physically like start shaking someone. Don't like push them into a wall or on the ground and start like attacking somebody. Don't do that. There's a boundary. You can be someone without truly like physically affecting someone else, unless it's being in character and they're so happy that they crumble to the floor, which I've mentioned previously. That can happen and you don't really have control over that. But it is a difficult boundary to find, and it's not always easy to know when the right place and the right time is for stuff like that. It's a very case-by-case basis. Like, I'm trying to think of like a good character example for that. I'm sure people in here have like plenty on their minds right now. Someone give me, I hope I actually know this suggestion. Somebody give me a character that's like that. Yes?
Bill Cipher.
Okay, haven't actually watched this show, so I don't know if I can actually be helpful in that. You here?
Isaiah Orihara from Videographer.
Okay, haven't watched the whole series, but I've seen a lot from it. You know, maniacal laughter jumping on some poor girl's cell phone in the street, it's fine, you know, carries a knife everywhere and is happily ready to stab somebody in the face, you know, it happens. Don't do that. You don't gotta do that to be Isaiah Orihara. You can be Isaiah without stabbing someone in the face. There are other facets to Isaiah Orihara that you can absolutely tap into. That's where the subtleties for characters like that can often be a lifesaver, because you can fall back on something that's safer to do in a public space. If you know how Isaiah walks, that cocky smirk that he has on his face, the way he might look down on you and just be like, I know I'm hot, I know I'm better than you, it's fine. Don't even worry about it, I could stab you, I'm just not going to, because I have better things to do. You know, something like that. There's other ways you can carry yourself to own that character without getting in someone's face being like, ha ha ha, I'm Isaiah, wanna go? Don't do that. There's a line. Don't. You can like poke it a little sometimes if someone's prepared, but you don't have to like lunge over it. Please don't. That's what gets you thrown out of con spaces, and that can kind of ruin a weekend for people. Yes.
So what about nice interactions? What if you are maybe younger and have not gone up to people really to be like, hey, I like your costume, or have an interaction? How would you go about doing that if you're maybe really nervous to? It's a tricky thing too, because that's something that you kind of have to warm up to, and you have to get used to it, as well as a lot of things. Through getting acquainted with the con atmosphere can really just help a lot. This is a great atmosphere for having the ability to be versatile and to expand upon the many facets of cosplay, and which ones you want to personally polish and let shine to other people. You can show whatever side of your cosplay diamond to anybody that's around. I am coming up with some great metaphors today. But you have to, see, these are the things that are difficult for me, because it was always like such an intuitive thing for me. Because I came into the con scene really late. First con I was 19. So I never had the experience of walking into a con as a very young person and being overwhelmed by all these really tall people that are like probably way better than me at everything. And everybody was still way better than me at 19, trust me. Everybody's still better than me, it's fine, nothing's changed. But, except for some reason I'm at the front of a room talking for an hour, but that's like literally it. And everybody's different too, and so everybody's gonna warm up to that with their own pace. It helps to be with people that know, definitely. If you can, that's just a general rule of thumb, maybe don't go to a con alone for the first time. If there's any way that you can have like a buddy or a friend to sort of be around with you, yeah, con buddies, yay. It's really helpful, because that person can help be there to like encourage you, to help walk you to someone and be like, wow, your cosplay is like really cool. Talk to me about the show. I love this show too. And just starting even a casual conversation with someone about being like, oh my gosh, I love da 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 da. I love this show so
much. Tell me all the memes and the inside jokes. I'm with you. Even just that conversation, I've had a completely casual conversation with someone, and then before I knew it, I was completely role-playing with somebody. And then we stopped like 10 minutes later, we're like, hello, friend. I see you, I feel you. I get you. It's magical, honestly. A lot of magical things can happen at con just from coming up and talking to someone about anything. Relate to each other on things, and that's what's really going to help take you far in that. And then, so practice helps a lot. However you can get it done, whoever you can get it done with, it's helped so much. And the more you do it, the more at ease you're going to feel. And especially if you're preparing for a panel, have someone sit there, pretend to be an audience member, and give you the hardest questions they could think of. Someone who knows the show like you do, and so if you give an answer that's like, I don't know if they'd say that. Tell the friend, if you're willing to take the constructive criticism, tell them to like, call me out if I'm not selling this right, and let them tell you, and then be like, okay, sit down over the boardroom table and be like, okay, what would this character do in this scenario and why? That is the key phrase. The key question is why. Why does a character do everything that they do? And once you understand the motivation behind something, everything starts to fall into place. If you know a character's backstory, where they came from, where they're at, and where they want to go, it makes so much sense. Especially like well-written series, creators that really think about this stuff. Sometimes people will give a creator credit for how much they've thought about something. And if you sit down and really analyze things, oh man, it opens up so many doors. And you're like, this series just got like 10 times deeper and I had no idea because everything actually fits. Right. So who wants to let me pick on them? Hi. Okay.
Here's what I found on the web for his just got likes.
Hi, Siri, you're not actually invited. You're not actually helpful either. I'm sorry, you and our feelings aren't mutual. I think we need some space. We'll talk later, but I can't have a constructive discussion right now. I need to walk away. Okay, so hi. Do you cosplay any characters that you feel really comfortable about? Or do you feel like you know a character really, really well? Who?
The character I'm cosplaying right now, Katsuki Kusukabe from My Neighbor Totoro.
Cool. Just out
Okay.
in the hall so I can see you. Okay. All right. So give me a situation that happens.
They're moving into their new house.
Okay. How does she feel about it?
She's really excited
Why?
because it's a new start and that she gets to see her mom and her mom's closer because her mom's in the hospital.
Okay. New start. So talk to me more about that. So she wants a new start. What does she want a new start from? What was in the past that she wanted to get away from?
I'm not sure. I just assumed that it was a new start.
Okay. That makes sense. If you had to take a guess.
Maybe that their dad needed was moving because of the job.
That could be. Maybe he's not home enough. Maybe there's just like a lot of tension going on in the family that they just need to have that clean slate to start off with. Okay, give me another situation.
Her little sister May is running off and finds Totoro.
And when her sister runs off, how does she feel about that?
Scared and worried.
Why? She's probably the obvious answer of, oh my god, my sister's like running away.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Why are you like this? And then what happens next?
They, Katsuki finds May and follows them through a forest tunnel thing, and they find Totoro, and May ends up falling asleep, and they find her there,
Okay.
just laying on the ground.
So first seeing Totoro, first thoughts.
I really liked it since it was the first anime I ever watched.
Okay. What about the character? What did she think when she first
I
saw?
thought I related to her very well because of her happy and like joyful aura that she gave off, and how she was excited about like every little thing, and how she put on like a little tough act.
Okay. So like your choice to cosplay this character was very much sort of like I relate to this character very much on like an emotional level. Similar like uppity, happy, excited personalities.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so ask yourself why. A lot. And I have somebody else who feels like they know someone really well. Hi. This is about Alphys?
Yeah.
Bless. Come here. Okay. This one I know like well because I've watched so many playthroughs of Undertale. Okay, so Alphys. What a lovely little ball of sunshine she is. So creator of Metaton, yes.
Yes.
Why?
I believe it was part of because how lonely she gets. It's a way for her to take the things that she loves, like anime and Mew Kissy Cutie, whatever, and to make it a reality for her. But to make it something that's entertaining and helps her keep from being too alone.
That is very true. And Metaton becomes a star of the underground. All the other monsters look up to him, idolize him for what he does. And he becomes almost a very separate entity from Alphys' life. How do you think that makes her feel?
I feel like it would be a mixture of emotions. She'd be happy that something she created is doing so well, but of course there would be that aspect of another person that goes off on their own, and
Right.
she's stuck in her laboratory alone to continue binging her anime or watching
Exactly.
things.
Do you think there might be a case of almost a little bit of more sadness and loneliness than before because something that she created is now having its own life?
Mhm.
And she might almost be trying to live vicariously through it, but can't
Absolutely.
really because she's not actually getting that credit.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And then, first feelings about having feelings for Undyne.
Probably confused. A lot of confusion.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it would probably be kind of excited because she found somebody that she can idolize that's in real life, that actually exists, that is actually right there in front of her. And it just makes her go crazy.
Who's actually like awesome and wears a suit of armor and is like part of the
Just watch
Royal
Penny,
Guard.
It's like hunched down, a little
Right.
shy, a little shaky probably.
Exactly. Okay, yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. So yeah, go as deep as you can go. Figure out why. How does everything make a character feel? Find the motivation. And that's like one thing you'll hear a lot in acting classes if you ever take them. Directors will talk to you about motivation a lot. That's like a key word. They'll have you analyze scripts sometimes, and for each line, each individual line, it's not even a complete sentence, each line of speech in your dialogue, write down the reason why. What's the motivation behind things? And then after a while, if you think about it enough, things start to make a lot of sense. And it all falls into place. So does anybody have, yes?
Sorry, I'm kind of coming this from a storytelling point of view. Accumulating everything you kind of said, it seems like it's no different than taking the character, sitting down, writing out the character profile, figuring out this is not just what they look like, but why are they like this? Why? And just kind of circling through it. Thank you. I never thought about it like the bringing a character to life in 3D in cosplay to a character on paper or in drawing.
Yep. You're not wrong. That's basically it. You're getting to know someone who's not, because they're not a real person that you can sit down over a cup of coffee with and talk to and pick their brain for an hour, but you can get pretty darn close. You can get as close as you can, depending what the creator gives you to go off of, filling in the blanks where you can. Go off of what's been given to you first so that you get a good base foundational understanding, and then once you know what the character's about, why they do certain things, when you get those questions or when you ask yourself those questions of, oh man, what would they do in this situation, or how would they feel if this happened? The answer doesn't seem as hard to just pull out of the air because you know them already. You can be them already. And so if you put yourself in those shoes, what would you do? And sometimes that is often a correct answer. So there you go. Yes?
Okay, so it's kind of sort of relating to that.
way to sort of get into the mindset of the character and kind of like go really, really deep into it is just to ask yourself like really obscure questions that you wouldn't normally ask anybody, and then just like answer them from the character's perspective as well as you can, and give like long answers and stuff. That's how I usually do it, like on paper, before I try and like write fan fiction or whatever.
That is
my
true.
sort of forte. So like things like, you know, what do they smell like? What do they think as far as like subjective morality, or like what would they rather be right, or like you know, not hurt anybody, or like whatever else like kind of really obscure questions you can think of.
No, it's true. If you can ask the questions that would maybe not seem like great conversation starters to a normal person having a conversation with, just like ask them ask a character the little things in your head of like, what's your favorite flower? What's your favorite scent? And then if you like writing and like getting into that fan fiction mindset, free write. Become that character and just like free to write without stopping for however many seconds, however many minutes, answering this. Ramble if you want, go off on a tangent, and then stop, walk away from it if you need to, come back with a fresh mindset, read it, and then it's like, oh, I can see a thought process here. I can see a train of thought from point A to point Z. And then you can sit down and analyze that for 20 minutes if you want. You can go in and funnel down to the most minute details if you want to, all depending on how far you want to take it. The boundaries are limitless with characters.